Hey guys, this is Thorsten from Komodo, back with another explainer video. We always say Komodo is so much more performant than other blockchains. But what does that mean? And more importantly, in what way is it more performant? And is there any trade-offs? So let's take a look at blockchains that use a virtual machine to execute smart contracts like Ethereum, EOS, Tron, so on, versus Komodo's Antara modules. We will use Ethereum as an example. I will show you a typical simple virtual machine architecture, and it starts with the hardware layer that's here at the bottom. This is the hardware, a computer, typically a server. And this is running an Ethereum node. This is the node itself, and it's mainly responsible for networking. So it ensures that the chain is always in sync, maintains this shared state. On top of the node, there is something called the virtual machine. It is actually the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine here. We call it virtual because it is separated from the metal. It is separated from the hardware. It runs in like a sandbox-like isolated environment. So this is going to be the EVM code itself. This is the smart contract. This is compiled to something called bytecode. We can take this and feed into the virtual machine. That's how smart contracts are executed. I know this sounds ridiculously difficult, so let me use an analogy. Imagine that this is the best gamer laptop you can buy in the world. Best processor, best NVIDIA graphics card. It even has this individually programmable, key lights. It's very important. But you're running a Game Boy emulator on this machine. It's a very powerful machine, but you're running a Game Boy emulator. This is the VM, and it runs Snake. And believe it or not, this analogy is actually pretty accurate because virtual machines are very, very, very slow and inefficient. Ethereum's EVM is very slow. And with Ethereum specifically, every time you want to move this snake, you have to wait first 15 seconds for the first confirmation. And you also need to pay a fee like gas every time you want to turn this snake. And this is really, really bad. So why on earth would anyone wants to do this? There must be a trade-off here, right? Because otherwise, why would anyone use a virtual machine-based chains? Something, there's something here to uncover. And it will be clear when I talk about Komodo. Just let me clean up this right side. So Komodo, we have the hardware, that is a given. And we have the software running a Komodo node. It's called the Komodo daemon or Komodo D. And we don't have a virtual machine. The Antara modules, which is sort of the smart contract solution on Komodo, these Antara modules, they run directly in the Komodo daemon. So there are no performance constraints. It's not sandboxed. You can run very powerful Antara modules. You're not limited by this isolated environment. You can run, Fallout 4 or The Witcher in 2080p instead of running Snake or Super Mario from 1989. This architecture is actually really similar to Hyperledger. Hyperledger is newer than Komodo, so we were the first. But it's interesting that there is one another blockchain that's using this architecture. So what is the trade-off then? There must be a pretty big trade-off somewhere because this is obviously so much more performant than a virtual machine. So there is, and I will show you in a second. So let's look at Ethereum first. This, at the bottom, I will put the node back here. Wait a second. Yeah, so this is the node, and this is the Ethereum chain. These are the blocks, and they're obviously talking to each other. And in each block, there are the transactions. That's me sending one Ethereum or one Ether, sending one Ether to Elon Musk. I'm still waiting for him to send me back 10 ETH. That's what he promised on Twitter. This is another guy sending a transaction, and this is someone, an address, deploying a smart contract. And that's very important because smart contracts live on the chain on Ethereum. You can actually look them up. You can use Etherscan and take a look at the bytecode. And when you deploy a smart contract on Ethereum, it's suddenly accessible for everyone in the Ethereum network. And that's actually quite powerful because it is Super Mario, but it's Super Mario everyone can play immediately. And that's very, very different from how Komodo works. Antara Modules on Komodo, they don't live on the chain, but inside the Komodo daemon, inside the nodes. So here are the nodes, 5 of them, and you want to deploy a new Antara module, a smart contract if you wish. You need to make sure that all these nodes in the network are updated and they are running the same version of the Komodo daemon with the same Antara module. And that is a trade-off because your Antara module won't work unless all the nodes in this network are running it. So why did we make this choice? And more importantly, what does this mean in practice? We made this choice because when you develop on Komodo, you're not developing on the main Komodo chain. That's not going to happen. You are running your own smart chain, built on Komodo tech, but running on your own nodes. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a smart chain in Turkey. This is Turkey, because Turkey is a Komodo country. We are making a lot of progress there, and it's fun to draw. So this is a smart chain. This is just a hypothetical example. For example, sharing healthcare data between hospitals. These are the hospitals and GPs, general practitioners, and maybe other institutions. So this project has its own smart chain. These are the nodes. These are operated by the players using this chain. And in this situation, it is very, very easy to keep all these nodes updated with the most recent version of a custom Antara module, for example, storing healthcare records. And patients or other third parties, for example, they can just simply query this chain. They don't need to run a node. They don't need to connect to the smart chain as a node. So you can know what data is stored on this chain about yourself, or it can be another hospital, or it can be someone from abroad. That's possible too, so on. So what are the takeaways here? I think we have 4 takeaways. The first one is that most blockchains use a virtual machine, but they are very slow and very inefficient. In contrast, Komodo's Antara modules, they run directly on the nodes themselves and not in a VM. So they are much more performant, much more powerful than smart contracts. The third one is about the trade-off. There is a big trade-off, and that's code availability. Once you deploy a contract on a VM-based chain, it works everywhere immediately, versus Komodo, where you need to deploy this code, this Antara module, on every single node in the network. Otherwise, it simply won't work. That is the price you pay for this performance. And considering this trade-off, the use cases are actually quite different, because virtual machine-based chains, they work the best for like big public applications, which are frankly not terribly complex. There's this word or expression, smart contracts. Now, the dirty little secret about smart contracts is that they're actually not very small, not very smart. But whatever, we're stuck with this expression. So this is what VM-based chains are good for. Smart chains, Komodo smart chains, on the other hand, they are much better for something like this, which is very complex, but it's application specific, and you control your own infrastructure, you control your own chain. I hope this clarified a lot of things. I hope you liked it. See you next time.